Welcome to this session on OutSystems Infrastructure Configuration. In this session, we'd like to look at OutSystems infrastructures in more detail. We'll talk about the typical environments that we might find in an infrastructure, like a development environment, a quality and production environment, as well as possibly a lifetime environment. We'll talk about how these infrastructures can be deployed. OutSystems can be run as a platform as a service where the infrastructure exists in the cloud. It also can be installed on-premise where you have complete control of it in your own data center. Then we'll talk about the initial setup of the infrastructure, how to register environments and add environments as you need them. And we'll also talk about upgrading the OutSystems platform as new versions become available. So let's go ahead and get started. If we start by thinking about an OutSystems infrastructure, it typically will have different environments, like the development, quality, and production environments. We'll start by building our apps in development and then begin staging them to quality, where we can do some testing, and then eventually pushing them to production. So if we begin thinking about those environments in a little bit more detail, a typical development environment will be for development activities. It should follow the reference architecture, and best practices should be enforced there. And the development environment will have a shared code repository to enable component reuse between the different teams. When we think about the quality environment, that's typically used for functional testing of the release backlog. It can also be used for regression testing of critical functionality. And this becomes the source environment to push things to production. Which takes us to the production environment, where applications will actually be available to the end users. OutSystems provides the opportunity to gather real-time metrics for monitoring by the operations team. So the end user experience can become better known and more visible by using lifetime analytics. And this means that the lifetime application will manage things across all of these environments, like security policies, the life cycle of the applications, and lifetime will be the tool that actually stages the applications from one environment to another, from development to quality to production. So if we think about that in a little bit more detail, we know that lifetime is the web-based console that's going to support all the things that we just mentioned. So if lifetime is a web-based console, should it be instantiated, should it be installed in development, in quality, or in production? So as we think about this, the key question comes up, which is, where should lifetime live? And as we just looked, it could have been installed in any environment. However, we make the recommendation and think it should be installed in its own dedicated environment. Why? Because lifetime has access to the security policies. And if lifetime is installed in production, then the production environment needs to have bidirectional communication with all of the other environments, which means development can talk to production and quality or QA can talk to production as well. So we may not want to have those ports and those types of communications between different networks available inside of our infrastructure. Also, some IT users will need access to lifetime to be able to do the things they need to do. And we'd probably like them to be able to get to lifetime without having access to the real production environment. So by also putting it on its own environment, it doesn't cause any impacts to the existing environment. If it was installed in production, then heavy use of the lifetime application could cause performance issues inside of production. And when we think about platform upgrades, we can then worry about upgrading lifetime differently and separately from any of the environments that are actually running our real applications. So if we think about the infrastructure itself, if we select to use OutSystems as a platform as a service, then we basically will select the type of infrastructure we want to use, and OutSystems will set it up in the cloud for us. All we have to do is install Service Studio and Integration Studio and begin developing our applications. So we as developers will be able to connect to the cloud-based development environment. There will be a separate lifetime environment that has access to all of these. And then we'd be able to use lifetime to go ahead and stage the applications all the way to production, where our end users would be able to get to the applications. So OutSystems as a platform as a service is fairly convenient and easy to use. If I wanted to add a new environment, we can go into lifetime and ask it to create a new environment. All we have to do is name the environment, choose its placement in the order, so we can decide to put it after development or after quality if we already had those three environments existing, and then we choose the type of environment this is, whether it's a production or non-production environment. And it can also be kind of part of an existing environment. So that's how easy it is to add new environments to an overall system. If OutSystems is installed on premises, then a platform server needs to be installed on all servers of that infrastructure. And again, we're suggesting that lifetime be installed in its own environment. So when we begin to look at that here, developers would connect to the development environment, and there would be an OutSystems server and environment there. Same thing with quality or QA, and then the same thing in production, but in production we may even have a slightly more complicated environment where we may have not just one front end, but multiple front ends, and where in development and QA, we may take our front ends and deployment controllers and have them on the same server because we're not that worried about performance, where in production we'll probably split some of these key components that are in an OutSystems server so that we have more control and we can see and understand the performance of the system better. That also means that the lifetime application will be installed on an OutSystems server, and that will live in its own environment, which would have its own front-end and deployment controller as well. And that's where DevOps could access the lifetime application. If we're using on-premises, we have the ability to register the environments. Once the environments are installed, all we have to do is come in and type in the environment address and say register, and it will register with lifetime to understand that this is one of the environments that lifetime can now manage, and it will connect to the server through the ports that are needed to go ahead and be able to communicate to do all of the administration and operations that need to be done. Once we add multiple environments, we may add a development environment and then a production environment, and later decide that we would like a third environment, and we add the quality environment. When you're doing things on premises, as you add a new environment, it will get added to the end, and then you can go ahead and switch the order at any time. So if quality was added, we could then switch it back and make sure that production was the last environment so that development actually staged to quality, which then staged to production. Not hard to move things back and forth. So if we have our environment either in the cloud or on premises and we want to upgrade that OutSystems platform, one of the things we recommend is that lifetime be upgraded first. So there are some guidelines on how to upgrade the OutSystems platform, and there's a link here to some very good documentation that can walk you through that process. But we suggest that you start by upgrading the lifetime environment because it's what manages the staging between all of the other environments, and they will need to be upgraded to the latest version as well. OutSystems is constantly versioning things and creating the capabilities in a backward compatible fashion, but not necessarily forward compatible. So by getting lifetime to the latest version, it will be able to handle any of the previous versions and stage those applications and manage those components. So once the OutSystems upgrade begins and lifetime has been upgraded, so its environment gets upgraded and the application is upgraded, then we would go back and upgrade the remaining environments, typically starting with development. So it would be helpful to read the release notes and check for the known list of side effects and any breaking changes that could occur. And then we would upgrade the development environment and begin upgrading the applications and fixing any issues that may have arisen due to the platform upgrade. Once we then know all of those issues, we could upgrade the remaining environments one at a time. And after upgrading each environment, we would use lifetime to deploy the upgraded applications from the previous environment. So we covered a lot of information, but That's it for the OutSystems infrastructure configuration. Thanks for watching and have a great day.